So I'm going to show you how to use the iDistort node to create heat, haze, and distortion in NUKE. So I have our footage here. It's just a still image of the desert, and I'm going to add some heat haze, animated heat haze back here to simulate the effect of like a really hot desert road. So let's just get this alpha channel first, and we're going to be using the iDistort node. And when we're doing distortion, if you see we move these values, all it's going to do is just move the plate. But we need to have some channel to actually drive the distortion. So for that, I'm going to use noise. And I'm just going to take a look at this noise here. And I'm going to just play the values a little bit. I kind of want to have a bit stretched out like that. So I've just switched to X and Y, and I've made the X about 100 and then the Y 30, so it's a little bit stretched in the X direction. And then I'm just going to animate this on the first frame. Just close all this other stuff. So just set a key on the Z on the first frame, and then on the last frame I'm just going to move it over and see how that looks. Probably want it to be a little bit faster, so I just go in the curve editor here and just drag it up to make it a little bit faster. So that's kind of the speed I'm looking for. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to just change some of these values here. So I'm going to bring this up, get a little bit more contrast in here, so it'll be a little bit more interesting effect. Second thing we need to do after creating the noise is actually copy this into a new channel into our footage. So to create a new channel, we're going to use the copy node, and you can just hit the hotkey as K on your keyboard. K as in kilo. And we're just going to drag this on here. So we're going to copy the alpha from this into our footage, and we're going to just use a new channel. So I'm going to just use the forward U, because it doesn't, or the forward U, it doesn't really matter what channel you use. It just needs the iDistort just needs a channel to distort from. So now we're going to open up our iDistort again, and if you see here in the copy, we've switched it to forward U. So in the UV channels of the iDistort, I'm just going to change it to forward. And now if we look at our iDistort and we play with the UV scale and offset, you'll see, if I turn that on and off, you can see we're getting some distortion here now. So I'm just going to set these a little bit lower now, and I'm going to also need to change the values of the noise a little bit. So I'm going to just decrease the lacunarity or increase the lacunarity to get some more variation, and just try to get a little bit less contrast. See how that looks. All this is just playing around and trying to figure out what works best for you. There's not really any magic number. I'm just going to create a roto so that I can just use it in just this area. So I'm going to reformat my footage, and then I'm just going to use just this little area here. And I'm just going to mask my noise with that. And just blur it a little bit. So that's going to only be in that one area instead of all over the whole plate. I switch this to mask. So what we also need to do is, a lot of times in distortion, there's also it also gets blurred. So we can use the same thing. We can use a blur channel, and we can use the exact same channel to blur our footage as well. So if I bring that up, you can see what it's kind of doing there. So just a little bit like that, maybe. I'm just going to play these values. Basically, there's scale and offset. Offset is how much the distortion will take place, and scale is like scaling the UV channel, which is, I've said, is the forward channel. So let's just see how this looks if we play it full time. So that's obviously way too fast, but if you just look at it on a still frame, you can kind of see what it's doing. Like I said, a lot of this is just playing around and trying to figure out what works best for your situation, but probably have to slow this down a little bit. What we can also do in the noise is, if we kind of wanted to add some sort of wind effects, we can set keys on the translate X as well, and we can actually move the noise along. So if we look at the noise and set a key there and a key at the end, and then now it'll kind of move along a bit more. So now I kind of have the noise kind of blowing by, so we're still way too fast. But that's sort of the general idea. I just want to show you guys the tools, and you guys can figure out what works best, what settings work best. The other example I wanted to show you was for this shot. This shot I created to try to create it like so it would kind of look like it's like a single pane window with some like distortion, like a really old window with some like distortion and stuff like that. So I'll just show you kind of what I did here. So I have this, which is just the window frame with some like random grunge texture on it. And basically what I'm doing is in the alpha channel, I'm dilating it in and dilating it out with these two. So one's going negative, one's going positive. And then I'm using that to stencil itself so that just note there's distortion just in this area and it's kind of pushed out farther from where the window actually is. And then I'm just taking a noise node like that and putting it over to add some more variation. And then just blurring it and copying that in. I actually created a new channel called distort.mask, but you don't have to do that. You can just use forward U. So copy that in and then add the distortion. So if you kind of look at this, you can sort of see what it's doing. It's pushing it in and pulling it a little bit in the areas where the window would be. So if we look at it on our final plate here, you can see there that's being distorted around the edges, and then there's also some like random noise in here from that noise pattern that I added on as well.